This is Chuck Huber, the voice of Android 17. You're listening to Anime Seekers. You better be, or I'm coming for you. Dragon of the Darkness, Flame!
Jedi Squadron is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, tokusatsu, and now Star Wars content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Hello, new Padawans, and welcome to the Jedi Squadron podcast. Here, you will be taking lessons in the many pieces of the Star Wars universe, whether it be the movies, animated series, video games, comics, and etc. This is your training into becoming a Star Wars fan as part of the Jedi Squadron. May your training go well, and may the Force be with you, young Padawans.
What's going on, everyone? This is the Jedi Squadron podcast presented by animesecrets.org. I am your host, Nathan Dessau.
And I'm Rizwan Merchant.
And today, we are continuing our little review series of The Acolyte. We are reviewing episodes 3 and 4 today. I do apologize that we weren't able to get an episode 3 review out for you guys last week. Unfortunately, I've been traveling, and my availability has been somewhat limited. But thankfully, I'm still able to do it, and this trip is also coming to an end very soon. So
back to normal podcast schedule.
Yep. But with all that being said, enough about my little personal life. We are going to be taking a look at episodes 3 and 4, giving our thoughts. For those of you who want, a more in-depth recap of what The Acolyte is all about, I recommend you guys go and check out our review of the 2-episode premiere, which is one of our more recent podcasts. But to give everyone the general idea, we are roughly in the case of the first episode we're going to review, it's a little different, but during the main time of this series, we're roughly 132 BBY, which is 100 years before the events of the Phantom Menace. It's a time during the High Republic, and there's a woman named May who's going around trying to kill Jedi, and there's 4 specific Jedi that she's targeting. For what reason, we don't know yet, but her twin sister, Osha, who's played by the same actress, is framed. Osha is a former Jedi, and her being framed for, well, not framed, but accused of the crime after May kills her first Jedi, results in her having an encounter with some of her old Jedi friends. Like, she meets Yord and she meets her old master Sol, and Sol, suspecting May might actually be the one who's responsible, which she is. The show doesn't try to hide that from us. Is sent on a mission to find her, and we're still and it is more of a murder mystery show, although it's not really focusing on the whodunit part of it, because we know that May is doing it, and the show is not trying to give us some type of fake suspense by having us think that it could possibly be Osha. The mystery is more surrounding why is May doing this. So that's a very important factor to note here. So we're going to now jump into our main review, starting with episode 3, which is called Destiny. So this whole episode is actually a flashback. It opens on the planet Brindok, the year 148 BBY, 16 years prior to the events of the premiere 2-parter. And we meet May and Osha while they were kids. They're twin sisters. They live among a coven of witches with their mother Anastasia. And it's actually revealed that Mother Anastasia, so they were raised by Anastasia solely. There was no father. Anastasia created them, which, that's something that Riz and I are going to have to talk about in a little bit, because this has kind of sparked a little bit of I don't want to say controversy, but there are some people saying that like they might have been created in the same way as like Anakin was, with how he was with how Shmi Skywalker was impregnated by midichlorians, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's very important to note that the way that May and Osha have been brought up, they've basically been said that even though they're two people, they're meant to be one as part of like, who they are. They're Force users. They both have somewhat dark side like tendencies when it comes to their powers. But even though the two of them are raised to believe in this code, which is born as two but always one, they're very different. May is much more content with living her life as a witch, honoring the coven. Osha, loves her sister and she loves her mother, but she wants to be her own person. She longs for more in her life, and they have very different feelings toward the Ascension, which is a ritual performed by the witches that they are set to take part in. And Mother Anastasia is actually very supportive of them, and she supports Osha's idea of wanting to do her own thing. But she also insists that Osha should stay on Bryndock because apparently the galaxy does not look too fondly upon people of their kind, which Riz and I can talk about that, go into more detail talking about that in a second. But to kind of sum up the rest of his plot, their ascension ritual was interrupted when 4 Jedi, these are all Jedi that we've been introduced to before. We saw Sol, who's a main character, the Wookiee Kelnaka, who appeared at the end of the first episode. Second episode, sorry.
Second.
Yeah. We see Indara, who's played by the same actress who played Trinity, and she was seen being killed by May in the first episode. And Torben, who was seen being killed by May in the second episode. They all arrive on the planet. They're they're not being hostile, but they're being pretty confrontational with the Coven, saying that like it's illegal for children to be trained in the Force, which again got a lot to say about that. But they sense Osha and May have strength in the Force, and they approach them. Now May is pretty much, as you can guess, rejects it, but Osha gets intrigued, and the Jedi want to test them, and Anastasia agrees, but she tries to discourage them from joining the Jedi. And they agree, okay, we're going to intentionally fail this test. And May does, but Osha can't bring herself to do so, and she passes, which, by the way, one brief Easter egg here, the test that they're both shown undergoing on the ship, it's pretty much the exact same test that we see Anakin go through in The Phantom Menace, where like the Jedi have this like little data pad in front of them, and like images are coming up, and the kid is supposed to kind of say what image is on the data pad. So yeah, that's a pretty cool little Easter egg, which again, I really like all these Phantom Menace references that this show is making. Like we had the Trade Federation in the premiere, and now we have this little test. That's pretty clever, Lucasfilm, considering, the Phantom Menace's 25th birthday is still fresh on a lot of Star Wars fans' minds. So a lot of people are going to be able to spot these Easter eggs pretty quickly. I love that. But with that said, Osha passes the test, and she decides that she wants to go with the Jedi. May doesn't like it. Anastasia, respects her daughter's wishes, but May gets really pissed off, and she starts a fire in Osha's room. She's basically trying to kill her, and that kind of leads up to this flashback that we've kind of already seen, where like where Anastasia gets killed in the blaze, and the two sisters nearly fall to their deaths. Now Sol saves Osha as she's falling, and May supposedly dies. And this sort of connects to the flashback that we've seen where like the entire village got set ablaze and the whole coven was killed, but we're not shown how it really escalated that far because Osha gets knocked out and then she wakes up on the Jedi ship and gets accepted into the Order while May is revealed to still be alive and her family's dead, her sister's supposedly dead, and she is a completely vulnerable child, which is pretty much setting everything up perfectly for this acolyte slash Sith Lord master who she's serving now to find her. And that's how this episode ends. So, Riz, I just spoke for almost 10 minutes. What do you want to give for your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, so I know there's some interesting controversy out there, but I want to start by saying this episode opens up multiple topics that actually really help paint a better photo or better picture, I guess, of the of just how the Jedi Order was back then, um, and kind of like how things are happening and were being run. But then also, I really find the way in which the twins were conceived very fascinating, and I would like to know more about it because I have some possible theories on how this connects back into the OT, but we'll not OT, but like the prequel and OT, I guess. So yeah, I think we can pick any of the topics you mentioned, Nate. I'm down for any of them because they're all very fascinating right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
But yeah, so the elephant in the room for me is that like a lot of people are criticizing the well, okay, not criticizing, but like some people have kind of interpreted as like Anastasia creating Osha and May as being like a way of like retconning Anakin as being the chosen one, to which I just say I don't understand how that's the case because like even though these witches are force users, they're not Jedi. And and it's never really overtly stated like how Anakin was created.
yeah,
So wouldn't so this whole idea that like it retcons Anakin, I don't understand how people can make that argument. Like, wouldn't Anastasia? I mean, couldn't you just interpret that as like Anastasia using the Force to like create more witches to like make her coven more powerful, or for some other purpose that we may not know? I mean, just because they're Force users doesn't mean that like it's connected to this chosen one prophecy that to be able to destroy the Sith.
yeah, like okay, so I had to talk about this Anakin thing with a friend a couple of days ago, and I honestly have a fan theory that supports the idea of the twins not being the chosen one. So my thought is we have, the witches creating these two children. The place where they grew up in Brendock, from what I can tell, they were the only two children in the Coven of Witches. And that kind of lets me think that maybe the Sith Lord of this era was experimenting with how to create somebody with a higher midichlorian count and pass on, you know, conceive somebody from the Force. Like this might have been an experiment that they were trying to do, and I think this was the first trial and what would eventually become Anakin. But again, I have no basis for thinking this except that I think it'd be a really cool story plot if this is what's going on in the background, because this would kind of connect the Acolyte to the prequels and by a greater sense, the current era that we're really invested in Star Wars.
Well, it's not only that, but like I think the other thing is that like the chosen when it comes to chosen one prophecies, they're not always specifically saying like there's only one well, okay, obviously there's always going to be like one chosen one, but like there could be like different people who could fulfill that prophecy. Like, to give an example from another very popular franchise, well, okay, you wouldn't know this if you only watched the movies, but like if you read the books, you would know in Harry Potter that even though Harry is considered the chosen one, there's always been all these theories that Neville Longbottom may have also been the chosen one, and J.K.
Yeah.
Rowling actually, and J.K. Rowling even kind of intentionally screws with people by having Neville, and you know this if you've seen the movies too, that Neville destroys Voldemort's last Horcrux. She's intentionally trying to screw with you. Did Harry kill Voldemort or did Neville? We don't know. Like, and it was Harry, but J.K. Rowling just wanted to mess with people's heads that way. So there's
Yeah,
always a lot of flexibility when it comes to some of these chosen one types of things.
yeah. I mean, I don't put much stock in the idea that these two are the chosen one. I think I like the theory I read elsewhere a lot better about it, which is these two are what we call a force dyad, where you have two people, one on one side of the force, one on the other side of the force, kind of keeping a yin and yang. And we've seen this before in the franchise with Rey and Kylo, as much as I hate to admit it, because that part of the franchise is still a big wound on my soul.
Mhm.
But it is something that's out there, and it's a theory that I was kind of reading the other day. And while I don't fully think that, it's something I'd want to compare to Rey and Kylo just because I don't like that movie as much, I still think it's a valid theory to say that these aren't the chosen ones, but they are a force dyad, and maybe that's just a way to expand our knowledge on that concept, because I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of insight into how the dyad even works in general. And I don't know if anyone really does outside of like people making this series right now. Because I don't think they even explained it that well in the sequel movies.
No, they don't.
But what do you think of that?
Like just the force dyad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's possible. Like, I think the real thing, and maybe they'll go into detail on this, and maybe they won't, is that maybe like we probably need to have more of an idea of like what Anastaea's intention was when she supposedly created Osha and May, because like I don't know, I really want to have a bit more backstory on their witch coven, because the way that I can kind of see it, like these people don't want to be part of the Jedi. Now now I'm not saying that they're evil, because you can tell that like they just want to exist and they just want to live their lives in seclusion. But they're Anastasia at one point says they that the galaxy doesn't look kindly upon them, which to me probably says something that they're force users and they walk around wearing like dark robes and all that. Maybe they're afraid that like people would mistake them for Sith or something like that. So
It's just another witch hunt, honestly.
yeah, okay.
I mean, that's how I see it. Is that's they're under a witch hunt in the same way we had the Salem witch trials, a
Yeah.
couple of centuries back.
And fittingly enough, this is a couple of centuries back in the Star Wars universe too. So
Right. So to me, it makes sense that you have this one coven that's trying to do just they want to stay recluse. They don't want to be involved in society. They just want to practice their belief and their culture and not bother anyone, not commit any crime, not be a pain in anyone's ass, and just be.
yeah.
And I think that's a really cool concept because we spent a lot of time in the Clone Wars, in Rebels, and the Ahsoka TV show, kind of showing the dark side of the witches. But here we're seeing more of what I would call either the light side or the neutral side. I don't know if I'm going to call them light side per se, but definitely a lot of intrigue here with, these portrayals of different groups being cast in a light that we never thought of them being cast in before.
Yep.
And, something else that's been bugging me about people's reaction to this episode, in addition to all the Chosen One dialogue that you saw, Nate, because I don't actually think I saw a whole lot of people even talking about the Chosen One prophecy thing. But I have seen a lot of people complaining that, oh, Acolyte is so woke. Oh, Acolyte is doing all these things that, they're just trying to be edgy and trendy and up with the 2020s, blah, blah, whatever. And I'm just like, dude, get over yourself. They're not really trying to force anything down anyone's throats, because I never got the impression learning that, they conceived the twins by two female as anything more than, okay, they're witches, they have some interesting powers and connection to the Force,
Yeah.
and they were able to conceive children doing so. I never equated that to, oh, they're lesbians and this is how they have kids because they don't want any strong man because this show is all woke and stuff. I didn't get that vibe. They are not trying to force any kind of narrative down about our real life socioeconomic political landscape. They're literally just telling a story, and people are reading into it what they want to read into it, and I don't buy into that.
Yeah, and to kind of clarify, Riz, that maybe it's just because I'm spending too much time in maybe the wrong circles, but the reason I got that vibe from people criticizing this whole thing for supposedly retconning Anakin is because I thought aside from following Star Wars Explained, there's my
Obligatory comment.
I also follow his well, I mean, he and his wife are kind of kind of jointly together. They basically do the channel. I don't want to mention her by name, but and she makes a lot of posts about some of the harassment that they've been receiving, because Star Wars Explained, the two of them, they get accused of being Disney shills a lot of the time, which they're being paid by Disney, which by the way, I mean it. Which, by the way, if you guys are Disney shills, which apparently all you have to do is just like some of Disney Star Wars content, could you hit us up and tell us where to sign up to get that, because we could use some extra money.
Yeah, we're always looking for more money to, yeah. No, I'd love to see where we're getting money, because I don't understand. I don't know about you, Nathan, but I honestly am enjoying the Acolyte for what it is. I'm not going to say it's the best of the Star Wars entries by any means, but
no.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, but where I was going, yeah, it's definitely fun. But where I was going was that there were Star Wars Explained's wife. She was shining a light on some comments that people were making about it retconning the Anakin and all that. Which, I mean, I watched this episode a couple of days ago, and I did not get that vibe. And apparently the other criticism that people are making, that, to be fair, what they're saying is true, but I still don't get why this is a valid criticism. That to kind of segue into this other criticism, people are accusing this show of being anti-Jedi, because, to be fair, the Jedi are portrayed pretty badly in this episode. They show up to a planet that's not even under Republic jurisdiction. They tell this coven of witches who are not doing anything, they're just minding their own business. And they tell this coven of witches who are not under the Republic, saying that under Republic law, you're not allowed to train children in the Force. Which really, the Jedi are telling people that you can't train people in the Force? Huh?
Yeah, this
And
this episode, I think I talked about this a little bit in our last podcast on the Acolyte, but this episode is going a long way in furthering some of the dialogue that you and I have had in this podcast over the last year and some sayings, where I've been pointing out that, hey, we see the Jedi Order as this force of good. They're heroic, they're just, they're fair, um, they mean well. But then you have stuff like this, and honestly, it kind of makes sense that, this is a thing that really did happen in the years prior to the end of the Jedi Order, that
uh-huh.
you have Jedi going to these different places, and they're basically conscripting the children at a very young age to join the Order,
Mhm.
get rid of attachments so they can't see their family anymore. Like, okay, I understand some planets, some families might view the idea of their child being selected for the Order as an honor, but how many people would honestly be okay with their children being ripped away from them, sent to Coruscant to become guardians of peace, or just part of the Jedi Order thing? Like, this is showing a different side of the Jedi Order, and honestly, I'm here for it because, while the Jedi Order is supposed to be this just, fair, courageous thing, everything has a second side, and this is the other side of the coin when it comes to the Jedi Order. Is, hey, they do enforce some archaic ideas on the people, like, oh, you can't train them in the Force, you can't. We have to take the children. You have no say in the matter. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. Like,
Mhm.
it was never even a question of, okay, Osa tested positive and she passed the test. But what would have happened if Osa told them, yeah, I tested positive, but I don't want to go with you. I want to stay with my family. What do you think the Jedi would have done in that case? They wouldn't have just been like, okay, cool, bye. They would have tried some other tactic to convince Mother Anase to let the girl go with the
Yeah.
Order. Like, they wouldn't have given up. They would have kept going at it. And that's honestly a refreshing take on the concept of the Jedi Order. And, I know people are kind of upset with Disney and all those people for quote unquote ruining Star Wars or stuff like this, but honestly, we need this kind of conflict and deeper nuance about the things that we thought were established to keep things interesting.
Mhm.
And I have to think, now that Filoni has the new role that he has, he there might be some more content coming out where the Jedi Order is continuously painted in both good ways and bad ways. But if you weave it all together over the next couple of years as we get more content, you might still see the trend of the Jedi Order greatly being those courageous, just, fair people that we know them to be. It just might be that they have some practices that may be a little bit more questionable, and maybe we should have revisited more closely. But that's my thoughts on it. I don't know. I've been talking a lot, so what do you think?
Yeah, so and okay, I'm going to sound a little, I apologize if maybe I sound a little too angry when I say this. Like, and I say this more as like someone who has consumed a lot of content even before Disney bought Star Wars. Like everybody who's complaining about how like Disney hates the Jedi because of how they're portraying the Jedi here, and then they bring up how The Last Jedi, which everybody considers to be the worst movie of all time, because of how Luke is critical of the Jedi. Like, it's this whole thing of like, how dare you make the Jedi look like anything other than just great heroes. And to all that, I just say, where the hell have all of you guys been? I mean, first of all, have you guys not seen the prequels, which are now considered some of the greatest movies of all time, even though just a couple of years ago you guys were saying that those were the movies that destroyed Star Wars? What happens in the prequels? They reject Anakin. All of the big higher up Jedi are constantly pushing Anakin away, and it's their rejection of him and their mistreatment of him that ultimately plays a huge part in him turning to the dark side. In Attack of the Clones, we see them get overwhelmed by battle droids to the point where over 100 of them are killed in a battle and they need to get bailed out by an army. And the entire plot of that trilogy is that the Dark Lord of the Sith rises to power right under their noses. He's right there in front of you. Count Dooku literally tells you straight to your face that the Dark Lord of the Sith has risen to power, and you don't notice it. And before you are even able to realize it, he has an army and he's wiped you all out and taken over the galaxy. But it doesn't just stop there. In the Clone Wars, which again, even before Disney's final season, Ahsoka commits a crime and the council refuses to listen to her, even though she's done so much for them and like she's a member of them and everything that she's done, she's a loyal member, and the council refuses to listen to her and they just expel her. And then when she's proven innocent, they don't really offer her an apology. The excuse is, this was actually just your big trial and you're going to now join, and now you could become a Jedi Knight, to the point where, and that's like the final straw for Ahsoka, where she decides to leave the Order. And it doesn't just stop there. Remember the Knights of the Old Republic games, some of the greatest Star Wars games of all time? The entire plot of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords, and even a little bit in the plot of the original game, highlights the Jedi doing some pretty dang, unethical stuff. Like, they used the Force to destroy someone's memory and create a new identity. They try to cut someone off from the Force. There are so many things that came out before Disney brought Star Wars that paint the Jedi in at best, morally ambiguous way. But nope, Disney starts doing it, and you guys are all of a sudden saying that they hate Star Wars. You know what? If you honestly think that, tell me that you haven't consumed anything other than the movies without telling me that you haven't consumed anything other than the movies. And I'm sorry that I sound really pissed off here, but no. Okay? This is nothing new. And you guys need to back off. This is getting ridiculous. And I'm sick and tired of how the minute that Disney does something, it's all of a sudden bad. I don't defend everything that Disney does, but this is nothing new. Ugh,
Yeah,
sorry.
honestly, I mean, building off of that in a more calmer tone, well, I do see. No.
Sorry. That really
I share your anger. I really do. But, I mean, okay, so I've consumed everything Disney's put out from Star Wars since they took over, except for Andor. And, in my opinion, the only thing really worthy of hate is Episode 9, the movie. I can get behind Episode 7. I liked Episode 8. Episode 9 is the one thing that I cannot get behind.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get to those reviews, probably next year at this point, given how we're scheduled out with the Clone Wars for the next year after this, you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to that part, because, Episode 7 and 8, they do something different. Well, okay, not 7 as much, but 8 definitely does something different. You turn Luke from this beacon of hope, and you show his humanity. You show his moment of weakness. You show that he didn't know what he was getting himself into mentally and emotionally when he started to rebuild the Order, because he wasn't there 30 years prior when the Order was around. he's building this up from pieces and bits that he's getting from here and there. So, he did the best he could. He's human. He made a mistake. He's living with it, and it's fascinating to see him live with it because that adds an emotional depth that you don't get otherwise. If he was just like that Messiah level savior in the sequel trilogy, all of these people you're talking about, Nate, would have just ended up being like, "Oh yeah, best thing ever. These movies are fantastic." But because Disney added some humanity and pushed the bounds of what we were comfortable with, people got upset.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't particularly care for what Luke did per se, but I respect it, and I definitely think it added something to the story that we kind of needed in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think these people are very silly, and I'm sorry if you are offended by me saying that, but like Nate said earlier, the prequels are, up until recently, the thing that we all hated, myself included. But you know what fixed it? A combination of Cartoon Network and Disney bringing out the Clone Wars to fill in the gap and to turn Anakin from a character I didn't like at all to one of the most beloved characters in the franchise for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, let Disney cook. I got a feeling that at the end of the day, this episode of The Acolyte and the next one after and everything else in the series will go a long way in helping us reframe how we perceive stuff that maybe we don't like right now. And maybe, today we're all saying, oh, screw the Acolyte, screw this, screw that. But watch, in 10 years from now, we're all going to be proclaiming the Acolyte's the best thing to come out ever. And the new thing coming out is the thing that we can't stand.
Yeah. And
So,
for everyone, I know that there's people who are going to say this. For everybody who wants to say that the prequels were never hated, Jake Lloyd, Ahmed Best, and Hayden Christensen would like to have a word with you.
yeah, because Jake Lloyd literally could never act again after that.
Yeah.
And it took Hayden Christensen and Ahmed Best the better part of 20 years to finally feel good about it. I mean, I've seen an interview with Hayden Christensen where he said, "I never thought I'd see the day where the fans actually love me."
Mm-hmm.
How messed up is that, Nate? That this guy, this nice, great guy who tried his best, he gave his all, he loved what he was doing. He got on set every day, happy to be there, excited to do what he was told to do, and he put all his effort and energy into it. And for him to be tormented for 20 years of people saying, "Oh, well, Anakin was terrible, blah blah blah, this, blah blah blah, that," like that's just toxic, man. I mean, come on. I understand if you don't like Anakin. I'm not saying you have to like Anakin, but the way we take out hate on people,
Mm-hmm.
even more recently with the actress who played Rose, Ray's actress was also bullied a good bit. If I remember correctly, the Inquisitor and Obi-Wan was also bullied quite a bit.
Yep.
So I mean, we do this a lot, and I happen to think that all these people who did these roles over the years, even as far back as the first installment with A New Hope, they all gave their all to build this franchise that we're enjoying today.
Yep.
And we should respect the actor behind it, even if you don't like the character, even if you think the character was not written well, even if you think the character ruined some aspect of Star Wars for you. We don't have the right to go tell a real human being,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, you're ruining the thing I love, so I'm going to bully the crap out of you." That's just not. No, screw that.
Yeah, like there's a certain Sentai Ranger I know that Riz hates, but I would never expect him to walk up to that actor who played the character and say some nasty things about him. So
No, I wouldn't. And I mean, I'm seeing some actors later this year from a Sentai season that I don't particularly care for, but I'm still going to be excited to meet them. I'm still going to want to like hang out with them and get to know them, even though I didn't particularly care for that season.
yeah,
Like, it's okay to like the actor or respect the actor while not liking what they portrayed. That's a real thing. Because if I'm being honest with you, I don't have a lot of love for Kylo Ren, but I have respect for Adam Driver.
mm-hmm. And by the way, for the people who are listening, that we do apologize that we kind of ventured off track. It's just the hate that these last two episodes have been receiving. It's just, I don't know. Obviously it got under Riz's skin, but it really got under mine too. So, and I
Yeah, I
apologize
mean,
for getting a little too passionate in the last rant.
yeah, but kind of to bring us back home, Nate, I think we touched on all the topics that I thought were fascinating in this. What do you think this episode rates out of 10, though?
So when I watched it originally, I liked it okay, but the more I think about it, the more I might say that this might actually be the strongest episode in the whole series because it has a perfect beginning, middle, and end. And it's not only that, but I have to give the episode credit that it didn't go the route that you would think it would go, where because they could have gone the predictable route, and I say predictable because apparently this has happened in like books and comics before, that that the Jedi show up, they take Osha, and May gets angry that her twin sister was taken from her, and she vows vengeance on the Jedi. That leads to where we are now, where she's going around trying to kill everybody. But no, they're instead kind of doing it more from the perspective of May believes that like the Jedi, that May is kind of dealing with some trauma that she might have killed her sister, and she's like blaming it on she might have blamed it on the Jedi, but she was also found by a Sith Lord who was able to manipulate her from a young age as a kid. So it's a very complex story. The more you think about it, not really easy. So that's why I got to give this episode a whole lot of credit. And unlike the previous two episodes, it didn't really have an abrupt ending. So yeah, the Destiny is definitely a 9 for me. Really
Yeah,
solid.
I was going to go with a 9 for it as well for a lot of the same reasons that I watched this episode once last week with a friend, and I was pretty floored by what I saw. And, I spent a lot of time on Reddit. I read some theories here and there, but I couldn't really put my mind together around this episode because of how complicated it was until my rewatch of the episode tonight. And then even just talking with you, Nate, that really kind of helped me see some things that even I missed.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, this episode really has a lot of stuff going for it. And I think if they play their cards right in the next couple of episodes, and they build on it, and they give us more detail and context, this could be a pretty dang good season, to be honest with you.
Yep.
I'm not saying, because the opening two episodes were they weren't bad. I think I gave them both an 8, but
yeah,
they weren't by any means bad. They just weren't as interesting to me. So, want to move on to the next episode?
Yep, absolutely. So this episode is called Day. It takes place in the present. So there's two plots that are going on here. So the first one, so it takes place entirely on Kofar, aside from a few scenes on Coruscant. Kofar being a jungle planet where the Wookiee Jedi Kelnaka is living in seclusion. Mai and Kamir, they arrive on Kofar. Mai is trying to find Kelnaka so that she can kill him. as part of her final lesson to kill a Jedi without a weapon. Although she'll get killed if she doesn't succeed. And elsewhere on Coruscant, there's a meeting over May, with Sol and Vernestra, along with a few other Jedi, including, uh, and this is something that I can briefly touch on. I thought it was just a random Syrian who was part of this meeting, but nope. The opening credits reveal otherwise. Jedi Master Ki-Adi-Mundi is among those Jedi. Yep, that's not just some random Syrian, folks. That is
snap! I didn't catch that.
Yep, and which there's some not controversy, but like there was some debate over how that could be Ki-Adi-Mundi, because apparently he was born in 93 BBY, which is much later than this, but from what I know, and it's already known, his Wikipedia page has already been updated to relay that information. But from what I know, I think the idea that he was born in 93 BBY was just taken directly from information regarding his birth date in Legends, because we don't really know anything about Ki-Adi-Mundi's backstory before he was part of the council in the Phantom Menace. So if anything, so that definitely makes sense. I think it's weird that he's still alive, that he's still going to be alive 100 years later, considering the lifespan of Syrians, but who knows? Maybe Ki-Adi-Mundi is just a very special Syrian. Not a huge deal, though. It's cool to see him, and hopefully he'll get some more moments to shine here.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to having these small cameos in the way they're doing it, because he doesn't really contribute to the plot, but it's a nice little nod in the background.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's not a huge deal. There was nothing in Legends. There was nothing in canon that definitively states that Ki-Adi-Mundi was born in 93 BBY, other than just deriving that from Legends. So yeah, I don't see any reason to really make that a really big deal. But anyway, the Jedi know about May, which means that Osha's name is cleared. Vernestra does not want to inform the High Council of May because there's fear that the Senate will be informed and that'll result in a scandal. And they're setting their sights on trying to find May and discover who's training her. Sol recruits Osha, who's originally planning to just go back to her normal life, but Sol convinces her to come with him so that they can bring May in, and she joins this little strike team of Jedi. The other people being Yord, Jeki. There's 4 human Jedi, 3 men and 1 woman, and there's also a Keldor Jedi. Keldor is the same alien species as Plo Koon, and maybe this Jedi. Well, I don't know if that's Plo Koon or not. It could be, could not be. Well, we'll find out at some point. But at the very least, we know it's a Keldor. And so they venture to Kofar, during which, Osha is afraid of confronting May. And, we learn more about how one of the big things that kind of led her to leaving the Order was that she was never able to accept what she lost and struggled with how she felt about May. Now, they have their encounter with May because May decides that she doesn't need to stay loyal to the Sith, this dark Jedi that's training her Khmer's master. So she turns on Khmer and she decides, I'm just going to surrender myself to the Jedi because they won't lock me up if I give them all this information. Then she shows up to Kelnaka's hut. She wants to surrender herself to him. And it's there, but she finds out that he's dead. He's been killed by Khmer's master. And at the same time, Sol and his Jedi arrive. And it is here that the mysterious figure who was seen meeting May At the end of the first episode, he appears. He doesn't say anything, but he takes out his red lightsaber and he attacks the Jedi. The end. That's how the episode ends. And what a cliffhanger that was.
Man, I kind of sat there and I was like, is this where we're going to end? Yep, this is where we're going to end. All right, cool. We need to have episode 5 drop now.
Probably my biggest issue with this is that I don't like. I wish that they tried to end these episodes in a different style, because, like, I don't know, like, just the way that they decide to end episodes just doesn't always feel right. Like, it just feels like so abrupt. Like, this definitely felt abrupt.
It did. And it goes back to the other two in the beginning that were also abruptly ended.
Yeah, but as far so this one isn't as deep as the previous one, because the previous one was all about kind of setting up like the backstory of May and Osha. And when you're setting up those backstories, and with their backstory in particular, there's a lot of deep stuff. But like in this case, I mean, this is just kind of a continuation of the story. You know, we're shown a bit more corruption in the Jedi, mainly from Vernestra, which I keep hearing from people who have actually read the books, including a Star Wars Explained kind of mentioned this, that Vernestra is acting a lot different than she does in the High Republic novels, which I haven't gotten far enough in Light of the Jedi to see her. I will soon, hopefully, but but at the same time, in that book, I don't know if she's a Padawan or just a younger Jedi, but I would just imagine that she's probably changed, and probably not for the better, since given her personality, since the 100 years have passed. But yeah, we're definitely seeing more corruption in the Jedi because they're trying to avoid their image being soiled. But aside from that, it's just a continuation of the story with mostly, Soul, Osha, and May getting moments to shine.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said as well. And I think we should spend more time dissecting the Coruscant scenes, because something in this episode made me realize, okay, yeah, so Osa left the Jedi Order, but we don't really know why. Did she leave the Order of her own accord because she couldn't handle the pain of her past? Was she removed from the Jedi Order because she had attachments she couldn't get rid of? Or did she do something to earn a dismissal that goes beyond the idea of attachment? Because
I think they've already kind of established that she left of her own accord, because there's no mention of expulsion or removal.
well, the way that she and the way that she's talking to Hal about it later on is he tells her, hey, you need to come with me. And she asks him, are you asking me back to the Jedi Order? But the way she asks is more like, are you going to reinstate me into the Jedi Order? Which doesn't really track with her leaving on her own accord, because the tone of how she said it, had she said it in a different way, like, oh, you're going to add me back? I don't really want to be added back. I don't want to come back to you guys. That's one way to say it, but this one seemed a little bit more hopeful, at least to me, so I'm kind of wondering about that.
Yeah, and we'll probably see that in future episodes.
Yeah. But that was an interesting thing that I think deserved a quick reminder that, hey, I don't think she left her on her own accord. Mm-hmm. I think she was either dismissed for something pretty bad, or because she couldn't ever handle the pain of what she lost, because she was brought in at an older age, like how Anakin was.
Yeah.
Which this might be the lesson that Yoda took and why he tried to stop Anakin from being made a Jedi in the Order.
Well, they do kind of establish in one novel that takes place like 8 years prior to the Phantom Menace that most of the High Council, so we're probably going to take in like Mace and like Deba Balaba and all the whoever else was on the council in the Phantom Menace, like they ultimately chose not to take on, largely due to an old Padawan of Dooku's named Ryle Averos. So I don't think it was just that one.
Yeah.
But
No, I'm not saying that's the only one, but that's definitely another data point for them.
yeah.
And the other thing I found interesting in this episode, so for whatever reason, I thought Sinestra was sharing a meeting of the High Council, but it seems like this is a lower tier council that she presides over that answers to the High Council, and that's something interesting that I'd like to know more information about.
Yeah, so I'm guessing she is a master, but she's not on the council.
How can you be given the rank of master and not put on the council? It's a travesty, dang it.
Yeah, but
It's just not fair.
this is outrageous. It's unfair. um, but yeah, so um, uh, the one thing I'm kind of wondering is like I the part that really confuses me with Soul is that, and maybe I just didn't watch enough, which is why I'm trying not to make it a criticism. Maybe it's just me, not having gotten the vibe, but like I'm wondering how Soul really is trying, like he's telling Osha that like he feels like there's good in May still, like he wants to save May, and I'm just wondering like where does this attachment to May come from? Like if it was Osha, it would make sense because Osha's his old Padawan, but he doesn't know anything about May. I mean, the only thing that he knows is that she was very possessive of her sister and she, as far as the Jedi are concerned, started a fire. So I'm just kind of concerned, like, where does this attachment to May come from?
I have some thoughts on that actually.
What's that?
So it kind of feeds into something we saw in episode 2 of the series when Torbun is killed and the way he's killed. Um, they say that he's been in that trance-like state or whatever for the better part of a decade out of guilt. What did he have guilt about? And why would they make that a point of topic here if it's not related to what happened 16 years ago to May and Osa? So, the scene had kind of switched from when May and Osa have their conflict till later we see them all on the ship going back to Coruscant. So, did the Jedi maybe do something to the witches before they left? Like, maybe some of the wit, because all you ever see is them saying, "Oh, they're all dead." You never see the bodies of anyone. So, is it possible that the Jedi Order, like those 4 people, murdered the entire village of witches, and that's what he had the guilt over, and that's why he has the attachment to May, because he's also feeling the guilt of some action he took in the past against that coven. And that would also give the justification for motivation for why May is even this upset that she's going to go off and kill everyone.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
So, I mean, it's just the fact that these two seemed like very, it didn't make sense for him to be in that trance to begin with, Torben.
Yeah.
So that's what got me thinking, like, well, okay, so he's in that trance because he feels guilty. And then we have the, attachment to May when there's Sin being attached to May. Makes me wonder, what's going on there.
Well, um I think let's be honest here. Even though the flashback does kind of reveal that the whole previous episode does reveal that May started a fire, there's no like. It kind of seems a little far fetched that like that fire like just completely escalated into a huge blaze that just wiped out all of the witches.
Every single one of them, like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
So that there has to be more to it that could
Yeah.
be related to the Jedi, and maybe why Torben was in that trance. And again, we're just gonna have to wait and see because we don't know yet. But
Yeah.
yeah. So you saying that like it doesn't make sense that Torben was in that trance. I mean, we don't know if it's gonna make sense or not until we finish the whole show.
Right. But I'm just pointing out that this is something that justify my thought of they are the cause of Coven's demise.
Yeah, you're right.
My other thing about this episode that I don't think we give a lot of real thought to is that end scene where we see the Sith Lord ignite the red lightsaber and all the Jedi are getting ready to fight. I am starting to think with a lot more certainty that that Sith Lord might actually be Kimmer.
Kimmer.
I might be saying his name wrong.
What character are you referring to?
The
Kimmer. Yeah, the guy.
Kimmer, yeah.
Yeah, the guy played by Jason from The Good Place.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. We'll have to see.
Yeah, because it just seemed well timed that he's literally tied up and then he's not in that next scene and nobody found him on the way to the hut. So makes me wonder, did he get free? And if he did get free, what's he up to? Because also he got there pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's identity is one of the big reasons why I keep tuning into the show, honestly.
Oh, I've been tuning in because I'm curious to know more about the twins.
Yeah.
The
But
Master's identity, I'm kind of waiting to see how it relates back to Plagueis.
or who knows? Maybe he is Plagueis. We won't know, but until later. But
That would be wild. But he's not. I thought Plagueis wasn't human.
yeah, he's a moon, same
Yeah.
species as those that run the banking clan in the
Yep.
prequels.
Yeah, so it couldn't be him. He's probably the apprentice to Plagueis, if anything.
Possibly.
Or maybe he's Plagueis' master and he dies in the Acolyte and this is how Plagueis comes to power. You don't know.
Definitely a lot of intriguing ideas.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as this one goes, it's so I gave the first two episodes an 8, and I feel like this one is an 8 too. Like,
Yeah.
because the reason why the previous one really stood out to me was because, I like it had to be a straight beginning, middle, and end, and never really, and it ended on a pretty good note, and it was a very deep one. This is just another like stepping stone toward a bigger story, and it does what it needs to do. But until I've seen the whole thing, it's kind of hard for me to like say like this is one of the greatest thing that's ever happened. So I'm thinking maybe an 8.5 because I liked it better than the first two episodes, but it's not better than Destiny.
I am thinking of keeping my 8 on this one.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Mainly because, it doesn't really give us a lot of answers, but it is good world building. We do get some more detail. We do see some interesting development, but not to the level of episode 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely not. Do we want to? There's not many other Easter eggs or references I can think of. Although that, like, because it's not like they go to like the same planets or anything. I mean, I've mostly just mentioned the Easter eggs, like with that same Force test or Kiadi Mundi making a cameo. But
Yeah.
yeah. So, do you want to add anything else, Riz?
Can we have episode 5 so I can find out how that battle ends?
Yeah, I want episode 5 now. Come on, Disney. Why can't you just be like Netflix and just post all these episodes at once?
Because then we have more content to give our lovely fans.
Well, yeah, that's one good upside. But speaking of which, guys, when it comes to our future content, when we're not doing the Acolyte stuff, we're going to be, well, okay, this weekend we're both meeting for a special event for a certain convention that's happening. But aside from that, for the Jedi Squadron, we're pretty much just doing we're bringing to you guys a lot of Clone Wars related stuff. Since we just did Attack of the Clones, we're going to be reviewing the novel Brotherhood, which is a novel that takes place almost immediately after it's kind of like a prequel to the Clone Wars 2008 series. So we're definitely looking forward to reviewing that. We're going to be taking a look at Genndy Tartakovsky's 2003, Clone Wars series. Sorry, Riz, I know you're not really looking forward to that.
Not really, but we'll do it.
And then we're going to do the 2008 series from seasons 1 to 7, individual videos similar to how we did Rebels. And that'll lead us up to Revenge of the Sith. And possibly that'll get us all the way through 2024. And then we'll be able to do Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, we definitely got a lot of cool stuff planned for you guys. We hope you guys will join us for all of that. Yeah, we once again, I kind of want to apologize for getting a little too passionate in this one, but yeah, we're definitely enjoying the Acolyte. And if you guys, and we want to make one thing clear, just because you guys dislike the show doesn't necessarily mean that some of the things that we said in this cast apply to you. I mean, there are legitimate criticisms of this show, and maybe it's just not your cup of tea. I mean, I understand that like murder mysteries in Star Wars might not be the big thing. So we want to clarify that, like, we're open to listening to other people's opinions. And if you have your thoughts on Acolyte, you can leave them down in the comment section below if you're watching this on YouTube. And, we'll definitely try to give your comments some shout outs. But yeah, we don't want to, as passionate as we can get, we don't want to say that like you shouldn't watch our content or anything, as we're fine with having, constructive discussions on this stuff. So yeah, just a very important thing to know. But with all that said, we'll catch you guys next time when we review episode 5 of Acolyte, and we'll get to Brotherhood soon enough. But until then, all you guys stay safe. We love you, and we do mean we love all of you, and may the Force be with you. If you enjoy us here on the Jedi Squadron, then please consider checking out our other content, including the Anime Declassified podcast and the Toku Secrets podcast, which you can find on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or on our website, animesecrets.org. And if you have anything that you would like for us to review that hasn't already been covered here on the Squadron, feel free to leave any commentary, whether it be in the YouTube comments down below or by reaching out to us personally on our website. Also, please follow us on our social media pages, Anime Secrets, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to keep up with our content as we post it.
If you're listening to us on Spotify or iTunes, we thank you so much and ask you to please leave us a rating out of 5 stars. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Like the video and leave any comments down below that you may give in your commentary or stuff you want us to review, and so on and so forth. And we will give your commentary a shout out on the Squadron, as we absolutely love to give our fans the shout outs that they deserve. With all that said, we thank you so much for listening to us here on the Jedi Squadron podcast, and we will see you next time for our next adventure through the amazing world of Star Wars. But until that time, the Squadron is preparing to enter hyperspace once again, so you all stay safe, we love you, and may the Force be with you.